Okay, thank you very much, Jakob. I will not try to wrap up all that we discussed in the PCR roundtable, but just some quick observations, and if there is any immediate need to fill in from the other people that participated, please do so. First of all, I mean, we have the impression, all of us have the impression there's a lot happening concerning product category rule development internationally, a lot of programs and so on. And we are always struggling. I think it's also part of how our mind works or so to say, okay, well, we somehow need to get grip on it, understand it better, bring it together, need to do something about it. And of course, in the past, we have tried to do something about it, at least in terms of facilitating dialogue around it. And so we had input presentations, some that provided an overview of what is happening worldwide. We had actually one initiative presenting a PCR registry, which is already a practical outcome of the discussions that we had at previous summits that can help to drive PCR alignment. And then we had some initiatives like the SMRS system from the Sustainability Consortium, the French labeling scheme, and especially the underlying data framework, and an example for a sector approach, the ENVI food protocol. And of course, again, like this feeling emerged, okay, well, there's more initiatives and more going on than we can easily harmonize, and why is nobody really harmonizing it? Somebody must do it, somebody who is credible internationally, and I don't know. So just some quick thoughts, some comments that we also had after the session. We kind of collected feedback on the presentations and questions that are documented. We'll see how to make them available to you. They will definitely be taken as an input in the PCR task force, like the organizations that really work on international product category rules internationally. Explain that to them. Many are here, but also some others are not, from WRI and the American Center for Life Cycle Assessment and some more, so that it actually is taken further. And but there were some inputs which I found helpful. One was, well, do we actually need to harmonize PCRs from different programs that fulfill different purposes? Because of course, different programs may have different purposes, and do we need to perhaps, are we trying to harmonize the unharmonizable? That was a statement which was really clearly, or could easily stay in my mind. And I think there's, although I personally don't fully agree with it, I see there's a certain overlap between a lot of these initiatives. There's something in it which I think we should take seriously, and that is to take a closer look at what actually do we want to harmonize and what not, perhaps. So because we're all putting in the same pot, here's a PCR, and here's a program, and there's a program, and now we need some magic formula to give us the one PCR internationally. And maybe we have to understand a bit more detail, what is it actually that we need. And my thinking is around basic principles or so that actually would help to drive a lot of that, but that's something for the future. And the other one was, well, maybe something like this also takes time. I mean, we have had something like that with other totally different areas of life, harmonization, but they take 30 years, 40 years, 50 years sometimes to agree on these rules and processes and testing methods and so on. And we are all very, what is it, ungeduldig, like impatient. But we've really been discussing this for 1.5 years now or so. So maybe there's also a lot of, hopefully a good learning process going on that actually helps us to really, if not today, but maybe in half a year's time, to really find that, like not the magic bullet, but like an appropriate bullet for one of the purposes that we need to fulfill to actually move forward a lot. And this is still what I think can happen and should also somehow happen. And I would like to invite everyone to really think in that frame. Okay, where can we take easy, practical steps and not trying to reinvent all of it at once, and perhaps not be too impatient at the time. So that's a short wrap up, and looking forward to further discussions on product category rules.
Okay, thank you, Rasmus. Well, hello again, everyone. We've just had what I think was a very enjoyable 2-hour session, working through how we leverage better business value from our product footprinting work. We had a good mix of participants from different backgrounds. And we kicked off with a poll, and I think the poll that we did, where we asked a few fairly simple questions, was quite revealing. We started out asking whether product footprinting work was delivering identifiable business value. And it was an equal mix, around half and half in the response, where half the people thought, yes, we can see some clear business value in what we're doing, and half said, it's not quite so clear. There's probably some value there, but it really isn't clear to us. And then we looked at the number of different consumers or users of product footprinting results and outputs. And I thought it was fascinating that even in a relatively small group of 24 participants, there were 9 different functions that were identified as using product footprinting information today in the real world, with footprinting activities being done by those being represented. So that's not a possible 9, that is 9 that were actually represented today. So I think that was very interesting. And then the final poll was to look at how complete or comprehensive the product footprinting work was. And again, I think it's worth just talking through the results, because I was expecting a lot of the footprinting activity to be on a very small subset of the whole portfolio. I was really surprised that around a third had, around a third of the participants were footprinting about a third of their products, a third were doing 1/3 to 2/3 of their products, and a third of the participants were actually footprinting more than 2/3 of their products. I hope I haven't lost you in the maths there. But so an equal split, really, across different portfolio representation, which I think is amazing. So it was good to see that footprinting is being done at scale by a number of the organizations represented today. So then we moved on to some presentations. We had a presentation from SAP, from my good self, from the Carbon Trust, from PE International, from a representative from Bayer, and also a representative from Nord Sugar. And I think each of the presenters brought a different perspective, and it was good to hear ideas being floated from people in the software solution area, from the consulting area, and then from the companies really at the hard edge of it, I guess, who are having their products footprinted. Some of the key points that came out in the discussion that we had in the final hour. One of the things that I felt was familiar territory was a concern around the reliability of numbers and whether we should be communicating these numbers at all. If business value in product footprinting is built on the premise of having a reliable number to inform a decision or to communicate outwards, then we were in that familiar territory of, well, are the numbers good enough? And I guess we got to a clear view that there was kind of horses for courses, or a need to do footprinting so that it was appropriate for the use. And if the end user of that number was going to rely on it for some important decision making, then it should be a fairly precise number. There could be applications of product footprinting where reliability and robustness could be relaxed a bit. So recognizing that when you do product footprinting, you have some idea of how this information is going to be used came across as a key point. We also recognized that when you're doing footprinting work, is it really important to come up with a number? And we felt that in some cases, just demonstrating that a company is engaged in product footprinting, that it's doing it reliably or doing it at least in some kind of methodological manner, and showing some kind of commitment to performance may be creating all the value you need. Perhaps you don't need to get down to communicated numbers in order to get value out of product footprinting. Just being present and evident that you're doing something may give the value that you want for CSR purposes and such like. One area where that differs, of course, is if customers are asking you for hardcore numbers, or if you're engaged in B2B especially. There we recognize that there's a need to be able to deliver a number, but a concern within the group, again, that it's not clear what standard you'll be trying to hit, and that standard could change from one customer to the next. So a little bit of a confused space, and that means that businesses engaged in footprinting are often having to respond to different needs with different levels of precision. I think the last couple of points I'll make, we started to look at the extra benefits and extra insights you get if you combine product footprinting information, the hardcore numbers, with other kinds of information. And we saw that it's possible if you combine, for instance, ideas around the profit margin on a product with the footprint of a product and work out things like intensities, you can start to see some risks in the products that you sell or in your supply chain. And we're getting into perhaps a repurposing of product footprinting, a reuse of footprinting information, where we can answer perhaps bigger questions by combining this commercial information with the more traditional product footprint information. So one of the areas that we finished on was the idea that, am I using my spending power responsibly? You couldn't do that with 1 or 2 footprints, but you can start to address that question if you footprint across a lot of your portfolio and then look at where you're spending your money and the volume of your purchases. I think that's probably a good place to end it. I just wanted to thank everyone again for their contributions. I think we had a great session.